Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Good to see ya. Welcome once more to SCP Book Club. This is a stream where we discuss the SCP Foundation and all of its interesting little quirks. For those unaware, the SCP Foundation is a collaborative writing project. There's a website called the SCP Wiki where people can contribute their own various stories relating to a shadowy organization called the SCP Foundation, which functions very much like any sort of, Men in Black type organization. They find and contain and research various anomalous objects, people, creatures, things, anything like that. And in order to contain these things, they use a very specific classification system, which involves how easy each SCP, or anomaly, is to contain. The primary examples of which are Safe, Euclid, and Keter. Now, I talked about these object classes briefly in my introductory video to this whole series, but essentially, Safe means you can leave it in a box, and it probably won't break out. Euclid means you leave it in a box, chances are good it won't break out, but you don't know everything about it. And then Keter, or Keter, however, there's multiple pronunciations. I say Keter because it just feels right to me. Keter essentially means it's going to break out, or it requires active round-the-clock procedures. Ooh, why is my mic so loud? Or it requires active round-the-clock procedures to ensure that it doesn't break out. Now, early on in the SCP Wiki's creation, people sort of used these object classes, people talked about them being about containment difficulty, but also there was plenty of people just throwing them around as, this is how dangerous an SCP is. If it's Keter, it's dangerous. But that's not always the case. There are plenty of safe SCPs that are very dangerous in the wrong hands, and just as well, there are many Keter SCPs that are not necessarily dangerous, more so they are difficult to contain and cause difficulty for the Foundation, and especially create opportunities for the public to potentially become aware of anomalies, which, while not dangerous inherently, is against what the Foundation wants, which is secrecy. You'll see a lot on Reddit, or even just on the wiki itself, people saying, like, why isn't this thing Keter? It could kill all of humanity if it got out. But will it get out? If we have one surefire way to keep it in a box so that it'll never get out and nothing wrong will happen, then it's not Keter. The example that people use is a nuclear bomb is safe. Yes, it's a world-ending threat, certainly. But you keep it in a box and no one touches it, it's not going to do anything. So it's not Keter. Keter has nothing to do with danger. It has everything to do with it being a containment hazard. Something that is difficult to contain or impossible to contain. And so today, and granted, to be fair, there are plenty of Keter SCPs which are dangerous. We've talked about a few before. We talked about the Forest, which is dangerous. We talked about, I think we talked about 106, the Old Man, briefly. Very dangerous. But today we're talking about those SCPs in that little Venn diagram slice of Keter and not inherently harmful. Now granted, not that these SCPs couldn't create situations that could potentially be harmful, but in and of themselves, and especially given the containment procedures they have, they're not dangerous. Only one of these could truly become dangerous on its own. 1.5 per se. But 2 of these are, in fact, entirely harmless. It's the ways that humanity reacts to them that's the dangerous part. So, first and foremost, we have the quintessential harmless Keter, SCP-396, and Suddenly Chair. It is Keter. It has a geolocator fixed to it. It also has an airborne amnestic compound infused in the cushions of a metal chair. Sure. When possible, it is to be contained within Area 93. Foundation personnel are not to mention any location taking place outside of Area 93 when they are within its containment area. Current theories on enacting permanent containment are focused on finding ways to create controlled environments and induce it to teleport there. This closed-loop theory of containment is currently under consideration by Area 93 leadership. It's a chair constructed of plastic and steel. At statistically random intervals, usually between 1 and 11 months, 396 will displace itself in another chair somewhere on the planet Earth. Any living matter that is seated on 396 or the seat it is displacing will also change places. This change is instantaneous. The approximate limits of this teleportation are unclear, but 396 is currently believed to be able to transport itself to any location on Earth. It was originally discovered in a theater in blank. It was classified as safe, as its area of effect was believed to be localized. As such, junior-level researchers were frequently assigned to work with it. It is believed that it is able to listen to nearby conversation and transported itself to locations mentioned by its research staff. Containment procedures and classification escalated until reaching their current levels. There are currently 1,280 locations that are known to have been discussed or mentioned in passing around 396 that it may affect. It has been shown to be much more likely to affect locations that were mentioned repeatedly or in great detail. A full list is considered to be impossible due to incomplete records of its early time in containment. And then they have a list of places it's affected. There was a cruise ship that one of the researchers located it on. There is the second floor of Site 77. There's Death Row, because one of the D-Class mentioned their name and point of origin. There's the washroom of Area 93, despite being in a soundproof chamber. There's the Supreme Court. There's a talk show set, a roller coaster, and the Vatican. That was loud, sorry. And the Vatican, where Pope Paul VI was displaced along with his throne and appeared within Area 93 disoriented and confused. Light dosages of amnestics were able to convince His Holiness that the incident was a religious experience, and a deal was struck with the Vatican City government officials to prevent widespread coverage of the incident. And then it also swapped places with a different SCP, but that's not really relevant to us. So, again, in and of itself, this chair is not exactly dangerous. I mean, if you do the right things with it, it's entirely harmless. It's more so that it can cause panic. It can cause widespread confusion and disorder. The chair does not actually hurt anybody, but it creates the potential for the veil of secrecy that the Foundation wants to preserve to be disturbed. And in fact, I've actually looked. Archive.org has a bunch of older SCP articles archived, and especially older versions of SCP articles. In this case, the original version of SCP-396 was actually pretty harmless. This is also the original image, but it's not compliant with the license the Foundation, the wiki uses, so they've replaced it, which I get. Let's see. Give me just a moment. I don't remember how far back it is, but give me just a second, and I will find out. I should have had this up already. Apologies. Come on. Come on! Okay, hang on. Just hang on. You're not going to be able to see the chat for just a second. Apologies. Yes, I know. There we go. So as you can see, already different. It's a safe class. Few safety procedures have been applied due to both its benign nature and current lack of understanding. Appears to be an ordinary chair. All attempts to discern the make model. Its ability to displace itself in another chair, repeating at a consistent interval. Where the original chair is moved to is unknown. It can't teleport more than 2.5 kilometers away. Its average interval is 32 minutes. It's become a familiar and welcome sight amongst the personnel of Site-19. Incredibly comfortable. Originally discovered in a theater. An incident where it displaced a chair which had been used by a Class D personnel, etc. It's okay. It's fine. But it's not the most interesting thing in the world. It's kind of just a chair that moves around. Whereas with the rewrite, it's still not dangerous necessarily, but it's a nuisance. Which for me is what's interesting about the SCP. The idea that it could just, again, cause panic disorder. Not a panic disorder, you know what I mean. Sorry, I'm having to adjust. OBS is being very silly. Give me just a moment. There we go. The idea that it could, again, break the veil of secrecy that the Foundation tries to preserve. Where before it was just, I don't know, it's a chair that teleports, man. And it's comfy. But I think the rewrite does the idea justice better. And I think it's weird for something like Keter to be kind of funny, but I also think it is pretty funny. The idea of this chair that's not actually dangerous, more just annoying for the Foundation to have to contain. But yes, this article was rewritten in, I want to say, 2016? Yes, by RJB_R, who is no longer a member of the wiki. But they wrote several articles while they were here, including this one, which I happen to be a big fan of. Next, SCP-990. This is, I forget what the name of the article is, The Dream Man or something similar. 990, Keter. Currently no containment has been devised. Any personnel with suggestions should report to the doctor. Excuse me. SCP-990 is generally a human male dressed in a Cold War-era business suit who appears to Foundation personnel through dreams. Thus far, no Foundation personnel have encountered it in the real world. If he corresponds to an actual human being, we have yet to find him. Presently, there have been no reports of 990 appearing to non-Foundation personnel. So real quick, again, another one that I looked at in the Wayback Machine. This version of the article is from 2009, and other than the image, it's almost entirely unchanged. We have yet to, there's a couple typos, but this report is still here. A lot of this, the only thing that's different is there's a log here at the end that refers to an SCP which no longer exists. There are some tone issues in this article. Some places where the clinical tone is not entirely met. But I think that can be forgiven, because this is, again, one of the earliest articles on the wiki that is, it's a remarkably well written and stands the test of time article, considering how long ago it was written on the wiki. It still remains pretty interesting to me. But I just wanted to get that out of the way. Anyway, 990 has been appearing to Foundation personnel since data expunged. Its existence came to light when several agents discussed having dreams involving a similar individual. Numerous other agents reported dream sightings of an individual matching the description. The phenomenon did not officially receive SCP classification until the aftermath of Event 990-07. Then we have the log of the event. Agent Blank failed to report for duty at his assigned time. He was instead found in his quarters asleep. Subject had been asleep for roughly 18 hours, and all subsequent attempts to wake him were unsuccessful. After over 40 hours of sleep, he awakened in an highly agitated state. Even after being heavily sedated, all of his bodily functions remained in a dangerously accelerated state. Subject described a man matching the regular appearance of 990. According to Dr. Blank's report, Agent described with great detail a series of events that would lead to several tactical nuclear missiles being launched into mid-Europe and Eastern Asia, ultimately resulting in the extermination of nearly 98% of the human race and the total collapse of human society. Agent claimed that the information had been outlined to him by 990 while he was trapped within his dream. Mobile Task Force Blank was dispatched to eliminate the initial threat that would begin the chain of events. They were successful and the crisis was averted. Agent Blank, however, did not survive his ordeal and died of shock-like symptoms. Since the event, 990 has appeared to many Foundation personnel and made similar threats. As of yet, no situation on the scale of event has occurred. However, it has successfully predicted the deaths of Doctors Blank, Blank, and Blank, as well as the destruction of Watch Station Epsilon 38 and data expunged. Any threat made by 990 should be reported to Foundation authorities regardless of its severity. This is another thing that sort of reeks of early Foundation. This should be in the containment procedures. But, again, the format hadn't been totally ironed out yet, so it's okay. Foundation personnel are considered free, again, also supposed to be containment procedures, considered free to converse with 990 if he should appear to them, and are encouraged to try to obtain information from the subject regarding himself. Additionally, Dr. Blank has stated that anyone who can determine whether or not it has a corresponding body somewhere in the world will be well rewarded. Whatever that means. It's okay. The following is an interview conducted between that doctor and 990. His memory has been historically highly accurate and reliable, the doctor's. State your name. Please state your name. How about Tony? Actually, I've changed my mind. How about Richard? Richard it is. What's the next question? Why do you threaten Foundation personnel? Threaten? Who's making threats? You've predicted a number of unfortunate events involving the Foundation, including the end of the world. And has any harm actually come of it? You murdered Agent Blank. Doctor, I believe you have the wrong impression of me. About me. How so? I'm not the bad guy here. I wasn't aware there was a bad guy involved. Oh, there is. Who? SCP... boop, 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 boop. With 10 characters. So somewhere in the billions. There is no SCP with that designation, and there won't be for some time. Well, of course not. She hasn't even been born yet, much less classified by your Foundation. Is this another prediction? This is your wake-up call. At this point, the doctor was awakened by his alarm clock and proceeded to transcribe the interview. And that's it. It's a very short and sweet article. It's a very interesting idea, and especially the Keter part of it is interesting because it's less so that it's dangerous and more so that they just don't know what it's doing. It's the fact that maybe it's just predicting these things, or maybe it's causing them. They don't know, and until they do know, they have to consider it a threat. But that its predictions have always come true, and so in some ways it is beneficial. But again, it's unclear whether it is causing these things to happen or not. I find it very interesting. This SCP actually appears in SCP Containment Breach, the game I've played on stream before, and only in loading screens, the idea being that you're waking up into the game from the loading screen, which is a very cool way of integrating it. Third, we have SCP-2006, Object Class Keter, is to be contained at Site-118 in an airtight containment cell, must be constantly monitored for changes in form, which are to be noted immediately. All personnel coming into contact are required to enroll in an acting course with a focus on expressing fear and surprise. Every month it is to be shown at least one new, extremely low-quality horror or science fiction movie containing horror elements. All interaction with 2006 must confirm that it continues to believe that said works demonstrate a superb grasp of horror. It is an anomalous, spherical entity roughly 50 centimeters in diameter when in its default state. Its stated goal is to cause feelings of fear and/or horror in as many humans as possible. To accomplish this purpose, it possesses the ability to change its shape, mass, volume, density, chemical structure, and voice to any form that it desires. Currently, there is no known way to damage 2006. The extent of its shape-shifting abilities is unknown and is currently thought to be unlimited. Currently, it has demonstrated a fondness for taking the forms of various entities and villains from the various horror and science fiction movies that it has witnessed. The most common form that 2006 has taken is that of Roman from the 1953 movie Robot Monster. This fella is capable of speaking even when it possesses the form of an entity that is normally unable to speak. It will generally attempt to startle and/or scare any individual it comes into contact with, but after doing so, it becomes affable and friendly. The reason behind this is currently unknown. It is a poor judge of concepts that cause fear in humans and constantly searches for new methods in which to accomplish its goal. This poor recognition extends to recognition of emotions in humans, as 2006 is incapable of distinguishing between subtle differences in emotion that would be obvious to a human. And then there's an interview log. It proceeds to leap out of its crouch, throwing its arms in the air. "Fear me, mortal, I am the mighty Roman. Cower in fear." The doctor screams and stumbles backward. "Please, mighty Roman, don't hurt me." "Haha, it's just me, Doc. I got you pretty good, didn't I?" Basically just an article that the doc was asking, why exactly do you feel the need to cause fear in others? That is, why do you scare people? Oh, that's an easy one. I scare people because it's fun. And, it's what I do. Just like you do doctory stuff, I do scary stuff. I'm the best at it. I don't really see what else there is about it. That you are. I'll take my leave then. Come back around soon. I'll have some really scary stuff next time. By the way, I will eat your soul. Let me out of here. I'm going to die of fright. So here it's like, oh, it's a silly little guy who likes to scare people. And then we get an addendum. I've been getting reports of some of the lax behavior regarding 2006. Many personnel have been heard laughing at it during surveillance when it watches a new movie or when it attempts to scare individuals. Some personnel have been heard questioning why it's classified as a Keter entity. I'm here to remind you that a Keter entity is a Keter entity, regardless of how innocuous it may seem. No, 2006 is not a rampaging demigod, nor is it a regenerating super lizard. However, it possesses the same level of danger as any other Keter that the Foundation has contained. Think of its purpose. It wishes to scare people. Imagine what would happen if it broke containment and found out what really scared people. Imagine if it saw the horror and fear of war, or the concepts of paranoia or phobias common to each and every human being. Imagine if it found the true horror of a nuclear holocaust or an XK-class scenario. Now couple that with an entity that possesses shape-shifting abilities with no known limits, and you'll understand why it's classified as Keter. All personnel mentioned above have been suitably disciplined. I do not want to hear about this again. Dr. Randall Owings, Site 118 Director. It's interesting to me, because in some ways I think it could be considered Euclid. Because it really is just, we have containment procedures that seemingly work flawlessly. But because of the potential for someone to mess up, something to go wrong, and this thing to wisen up, I think that's why it's Keter. It's I don't know. I could see this being Keter or Euclid, honest to God. This is one that's changed very little. In fact, I don't think it's changed at all from this original writing, but I just wanted to show. The last one I have for you is one involving a group of interest we have not actually discussed on this series, and that's because I think they're silly. Gamers Against Weed is the name of the group of interest. They're fun. Not my favorite group of interest in the world, but, it's not, there's something for everybody. 2293, Object Class Keter. Containment is focused on seizing and destroying instances of 2293 and all evidence thereof. Manifestation of affected media to a large viewing audience are to be given standard cover stories, and at the head researcher's discretion, amnestics are to be distributed. Foundation AI are to monitor quarantine, destruction of afflicted areas is authorized if a number of affected works meets a density of 1,300 occurrences per square kilometer or greater. Efforts towards studying it should be focused upon making predictive forecasts of its locations. 2293 is a phenomenon in which media within a given area, up to 20 kilometers, that contains any form of dialogue or speech may be subject to alterations. The area's baseline Hume rating decreases in direct proportion to the quantity of media affected. Essentially, reality's level goes down. Things are getting weird. 2293 appears irregularly, and no method for prediction of future manifestations has been devised. It causes all affected media to include a portion in which the 1999 car accident of American writer Stephen King is referenced. In each affected work, the line appears as follows. Quote, "Did you know that world-renowned writer Stephen King was once hit by a car? Just something to consider." End quote. The line occurs once at a random point within the media, although a preference is shown for moments that ruin an established mood. Media by Stephen King, those written under his pseudonym Richard Bachman, or directly based on his output, are unaffected by the manifestations. The introduction of this line, along with the descriptions of characters turning to face an unseen audience when applicable, causes the work to increase in size. This includes seconds being added to the tracks of albums, but it may also cause pages to be added to afflicted books if necessary. In mediums where a work has taken up the entirety of a finite space, such as data on a CD, the medium is simply made to hold more data than possible, with no other changes made to its nature. It is also able to change media as it's broadcast, whether live or not. Changes it makes to media are present to all viewers in the affected area. It is unclear how these changes are made to live television. On average, events last 4 days, although some have lasted up to 3 weeks. No area has been subject to the 2293 phenomenon more than once. Upon the ending of the phenomenon, all affected media remain changed. There was a raid on Gamers Against Weed, group previously suspected of involvement in several events of interest. The raid was conducted in connection with reports of local leftist groups using anomalous items during protests. A covered information indicating that they were responsible for the creation of 2293. The headquarters were found to be abandoned in haste less than 6 hours prior to the Foundation's arrival. Included in the document are a collection of the incriminating chat logs found on a laptop left at the scene. Only conversations pertaining to 2293 have been included. I won't read all these out. Basically, log 1 is a bunch of Gamers Against Weed folks talking about Stephen King's car accident and joking about it, and one of them becoming upset that they're joking about it. Log 2 is that person who is upset yelling at someone who was making the joke about it in the first place, saying that now their books and TV and games all have this anomaly in them, and their mom's album, in their Beatles album in their car. And log 3 is showing that this anomaly did not stop with that person and is now spreading everywhere, and that the Foundation is involved, and that all of them mostly just think it's funny. Because that's kind of Gamers Against Weed's whole MO, is just making anomalies that are funny. Now, obviously this one's Keter, because they have no way of predicting where it's going to show up. It affects large groups of people. It changes media. They have no way to stop it. All they can do is just cover it up. But again, not really dangerous, more just a nuisance. So like I said, there were 2 of these that were objectively not particularly dangerous. I would say this one and the chair. Really not dangerous at all. The other 2, it can be debated, but I don't think you can argue in any way that this one, especially, that 2293 is dangerous in any conceivable way. Yeah. Essentially, like I was saying at the start, Keter does not mean dangerous. Keter can overlap with dangerous sometimes, and it often does, but it doesn't have to. And I think we've moved on from that on the wiki. It's mostly a symptom of early articles, of being labeled as Keter just because they're dangerous, not because they are actually Keter. And some people still confuse it to this day, which I understand. It's not how you normally think about these things. It's also why on some newer articles, I'm trying to think of a good example. You get things like this. You get disruption classes and risk classes, which are meant to be more specific, because Keter doesn't actually tell you about how threatening this thing is, or its potential for disrupting things. And so you could have a safe SCP. You could have a safe SCP whose disruption class is very high, or you could have a Keter SCP whose disruption class is low, because Keter just means it's hard to contain. And so the chair would probably be really high on disruption class because it disrupts the flow of things. But something like there's another Keter SCP. It's a jar of toenails. The toenails will shoot out of the jar sometimes, and every time they do, the flow of time is disrupted around them. That's Keter because it requires constant containment, but it would probably be a very low disruption class because it doesn't actually break out very often. It's more so about active containment being necessary. This article, again, there's only one previous version that has nothing to do with this one, and as you can see, did not get received very well, so was deleted and replaced with this one. And, yeah, that's about all I got. This is not the most in-depth SCP, but I mostly just wanted to introduce you to a couple Keter SCPs that are not inherently dangerous, because I thought that would be a worthwhile discussion. And also, I feel like I've been slacking on actually discussing the history of these articles, which is why I wanted to show the Wayback Machine, especially on something like 990, or especially on 396, where the article has changed so drastically it got a full rewrite. Yeah, that's about all I got. I don't know how much I'm going to be streaming this week. I work 5 days straight from Wednesday through Sunday, so no promises. May have to take a week off stream, but we'll see. We shall see. Thanks for watching. If you're watching the VOD after the fact, thank you for tuning in as well. You can check out my Discord, and my Patreon, and my Instagram, all in the description, my Etsy, all that.